Hello, welcome to Ollie's Garage. Today I'm going to be doing an oil change on my Kawasaki Versys 650. So the manual states that this needs to be completed every 7,500 miles or 12,000 kilometers. The oil for this engine, you're going to need 2 quarts or approximately just shy of 2 liters of 10W40 motor oil. Now that's for most climates. As you can see in this picture up here, if you're living in one of the extremes, if you drive in the really hot summer days or the really cold winter days, then you might want to use a slightly different oil. The other thing that you're going to need is an oil filter as well. I'll have links to both of these parts in the description. Stay tuned. Next, you're going to want to run it just for a few minutes to get it nice and warm. I just go until the side of the engine is warm. If you make this really hot, then you'll burn yourself when you let the oil out of the drain plug, and that's no good. When we drain the oil, it's best to use one of these stands to keep it perfectly vertical so that there's no oil sitting on the side of the oil pan. So just grab one of these stands, slide it underneath these foot pegs, and slowly and carefully tilt her up. Your oil drain plug is located down here on the right side of the motorcycle. It's an 18 millimeter. Just crack it loose. Make sure that you have some sort of an oil drain pan in place. Remove this all the way. Then drain out the oil. This is where if the oil's really hot and it runs on your hand, you'll burn your hand. That's no good. So definitely just go until the engine's warm. To get easier access to the oil filter, I'm going to remove this side plate right here. It's just 2 Allen keys. These are 5 millimeters. Oh, I lied. There's a third one down here. Now we have good and clear access to the oil filter. I don't have the right size oil filter wrench for this thing yet. I need to buy one. I'm probably actually going to buy one now that I did this repair. It's funny sometimes how that works. But instead I'm just going to use some large pliers. Crack this thing on loose. Man, this one is on there. All right, kind of destroyed it, but that's okay because it's the old one. Make sure to have your catch can in place. Got my new oil filter here. This should always be filled with some oil before you screw it on. It's not that big. We always want to fill it with some oil, especially since at an angle you don't want to fill it with a ton. But that minimizes the amount of time the oil pump has to run and pump the oil filter full. And therefore, when it's just filling the oil filter, you're not getting any oil to your head or anything in your valve train. So always put some oil in an oil filter when you do an oil change. Now, if you have a vertically mounted filter, well, then you're kind of screwed. But this thing, it doesn't have that, so add some oil. We'll lubricate the gasket while we're at it. I always like to wipe down this area, make sure it's nice and clean. Make sure the old gasket is off. Sometimes the old gasket likes to stick to the engine. So it looks good. Screw our new filter on. It says once it touches, you need to give 3/4 of a turn. There is a torque spec for this. So if you do have the proper oil filter wrench, it's 17.5 Newton meters or 13 foot-pounds. I'm just gonna go until it touches and give her a little bit more. There we go, that's nice and tight. Paper towel always helps because then you get more grip on these wet oil filters when you're wearing gloves. We can do a little bit of drain plug cleaning and inspection. So as you can see, there's just a little bit of stuff right here. So what I'm looking for is chunks, just a little bit like this. Doesn't really matter, I don't think, at least in my experience, it doesn't. There's just a little bit of wear, and it's just some ferrous material that this magnet is catching. If your motorcycle doesn't already have one of these magnetic drain plugs, I highly recommend installing one. It's always just nice to see because it kind of gives you an indication of the status of the engine. If there's a bunch of chips on it, like I said, that's bad, and then you know that your engine is probably going to need some serious work. Just wipe this down. You're supposed to replace this this little washer right here. I don't have one handy right now. This one, I can't even get it off without cutting it, so we're just going to tighten it down, and if it's leaking, then I'll replace it. All right, this is pretty much done dripping. Screw our drain plug back in. 22 foot-pounds or 30 Newton meters. Wipe it down, make sure it's nice and clean. We can put this guard back in place just with these 3 screws. These I just make nice and snug. It's just holding on a piece of plastic. Okay, now we get to fill this thing with oil. Open up your fill plug. Carefully set it aside. I like to always wipe this out. Make sure we don't introduce any dirt from around the outside here. So the specification for when you change the filter is 2 quarts. So let's add 2 quarts to it. If you pour the oil out the side like this, then it doesn't make all those ridiculous glugging sounds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add this until it's right between this bottom mark and this top mark. Then I'm gonna start it, let it run, and then I'll top it off afterwards. I don't wanna overfill it. Well, hey, it already looks like it's full in that regard there. So that's mostly 2 quarts added. That's running back down. Give it a second to let it sit. We'll see where it settles again. I want it kind of between the middle or the top before I start it. Close it up. I'm just gonna leave it on my stand. You should always check the oil level when it's level like this. So not leaning to one side, obviously. Now I'm gonna start it and let it run for a few minutes. Always do it with an open garage door. All right, she's been running for a few minutes. We'll turn her off. Let it sit for a few minutes is what the book says, and then we'll see where it kind of levels out. Looks like we're just a tad on the low end, so we'll finish topping her off here. We'll see what exactly 2 quarts gives us. I actually bought 3 quarts when I was going to do this oil change because I thought it needed a little bit more. So we'll just use this 3rd one just to top it on off. All right, now it's between these 2 marks, and that's where we need it. Slowly let it off the stand. Just let it roll forward, and then apply a little bit of pressure to the left. And then as you let it off, it sits perfectly down on the kickstand. Now that it ran for a few minutes, make sure to check your plug and also your filter to make sure nothing is leaking and to make sure you tighten everything properly. This oil is just stuff that I didn't wipe away. This is actually why it's really important to wipe it away, because now I don't actually know if it's new or old, but I'm assuming it's old. I'll wipe it away and check after I ride it. Now take it out for a spin and congratulate yourself that you didn't have to spend $100 at the dealership. Thanks for watching.